Hello everyone and welcome to this video on the Toliss Airbus A321 where we are continuing our flight. We took off from Edinburgh and we are now on our way in the cruise, as you can see here, over just coming to northern England now, but soon to begin our descent into Manchester. We're going to be looking at some of the systems, comparing it to real life. We won't be using air traffic control for this, just the normal flight, just to have a look at how the Toliss Airbus behaves and how the programming works. I've been flying the real Airbus for a few years, with a few thousand hours, and I thought it'd be fun to compare, and hopefully you guys find it fun too. So yeah, let's get into it. So we're going to the flight deck. Beautiful day here over northern England, as you can see. We're just coming up on our descent point. We can look in the ND. It's coming up very shortly actually. So we'd talk to air traffic control, ask for some descent if they haven't already given it to us. If we look round the weather in Manchester, taking it from the Avitab brief, we've got 200 at 6 knots. So light wind, expecting an ILS 23 right. No low cloud around, which we can also see out the windows. Beautiful, beautiful evening here. 16 degrees, QNH 1028, so high pressure, which is what would explain this lovely weather outside. What I should have done earlier is have the seatbelts off, so the cabin crew and the passengers have been walking around. Otherwise, the flight deck is pretty much as you'd expect in a cruise sort of situation. If we look at the FMGC, we've got our arrival programmed in, and I'll show you using the plan function on the EFIS. So from where we are now, the current two-way point is Lakey, and then we'll have our descent while flying towards Rosen. Not expecting any holding today, so from Rosen out to the centre fix for the ILS 23 right. In real life, probably expecting vectors from air traffic control after Rosen. Certainly, we would make sure that by the time we reach Rosen, we would have spoken to air traffic control, as we can see here on the Rosen 2 Alpha, where there is a hold, and we wouldn't get past it without talking to air traffic control, making sure they know or they have a plan for us. So out of interest, I'm just going to see what happens if we let ourselves get slightly higher in profile. You wouldn't do this in real life, but there's our descent point, and as you would expect, a decelerate message has appeared in the PFD, appears at the top of the PFD. Some aircraft as well, it will appear in the scratch pads on the CDU, so we know we need to get our descent. So let's imagine that air traffic has cleared us down to flight level 100, and that should have the TFX terminal as well. So if you have the mouse wheel enabled, you can just scroll down on this altitude knob on the FCU. So there's 100. If you see the 2 dots, that means if you left click, you'll go into an open descent. If you have the 1 dot, you go to a managed descent. So I'm going to go into a managed descent for now with the 1 dot. And to get the difference, to get 1 dot, you just move your mouse to the upper part of the knob and on the lower part the 2 dots. And there we go. We're descending. We can see we're above profile. Our little green dot that shows us where we are on the profile is well beneath us now. So the airplane will naturally try and accelerate, and it gives itself a bit of buffer. So the planned descent speed is quite fast today, actually. If we look in the MCDU on the performance page, it's trying to descend at 325 knots. That's very fast, actually. I would normally not expect that. I might see if I can modify that, as you could in the real airplane. Try 300 knots. It's not allowing it. Interesting. I'm not entirely sure why. But if we go to the progress page, we'll see how high we are. So we're actually not that high, 800 feet high, and it's making good progress on that. If that wasn't working, if the faster speed wasn't helping us descend as fast as we need to, then we could always come down here and use the speed brakes. And that should be it. Great. Something that a lot of pilots do to work out how high we are. You can't just rely on the computer, we work it out ourselves as well. So I'll put in Manchester, the code is Echo Golf Charlie Charlie, that's where we're landing. And 23 right in the scratch pad, so that's the 23 right threshold. And then I can put that in this 2 point. And there we go, it shows us that we're 60 miles from the threshold of 23 right at Manchester. So that gives us a good backup. I'm at 18,000 feet and descending, so that'll be plenty of room. 3 times table, so from 20,000 feet I would need at least 60 miles plus probably another 10 miles to slow down, so 3 times 20 would be 60 miles plus the deceleration. If you're any higher than that, you'd start needing to think about speed brakes and accelerating to try and make sure you're in a good place. Great, so in real life we'd have done our brief, which I've already done. talked about the rosin chart. You talk about the other pilot, obviously check you've got it all coded in the box correctly. Here's our ILS plate we're expecting to fly, so the ILS 23 right in Manchester. Got the missed approach coding, got the MSAs. It's 3,500 feet to the north because of these hills over here, so we'll manage our rate of descent carefully as we come down onto the platform for the ILS. Minima of 450 feet I've already put in, which is 200 feet above the threshold. It's a lovely day today, so not expecting that to be an issue. There's the profile. Got the coding 109.5, course 232. And we go into our MCDU 195, and course is. Normally I'd expect that to appear. If I clear that out, no, I'm not sure. I'd be interested to see then. In the real aeroplane, I'd expect the correct course to appear there, so I'm slightly surprised. If I go to flight plan and if I press airport, it will take me to our destination. There's 233, so that's close enough for a radio nav aid because we're basing this on the ground ILS radio nav aid and not the box computed one. But yeah, it seems to be coded correctly in there, so I'm interested. I haven't seen that before. Certainly wouldn't expect that in the real aeroplane. It might change as we get closer, we'll see. Right, looking forwards then. We're good on our profile, just expecting us to decelerate soon. And as I said, we'll imagine that we've spoken to traffic control and they cleared us past Rosen to the centre fix for 2-3 right. Also part of our brief, I've discussed with the pilot that we're going to use medium auto brake to make sure that we can vacate Manchester at a suitable point, as we're quite heavy today. We'll go to our charts and bring up the ground chart. So we're landing on 2-3 right and then expecting to vacate onto the Bravo Delta taxiway. So medium will make sure that we have the room to do that safely without having to override too quickly. And being single pilot, that's probably going to be a bit easier in this simulator. It's a really lovely day. I'm very impressed with the Toliss Airbus. It's quite amazing how many systems they've managed to get into it, and it's a really great looking model. Here we are in our descent. Good performance as well. Quite pleased with how possible it is to run, even on my computer. Okay, so we're leveling off now. It's decelerating to 250 knots as we approach flight of 100, which is what we'd expect. We've got loads of room height-wise, 30 miles until the centre fix, and we're at 10,000 feet. So very reasonable. It's also going to be a flat full landing today. If we look at our performance page, flat full is loaded into there. Gives us a approach of 145, so that's quite fast. We're quite heavy at 72 tons. So certainly you'd have checked our performance to make sure that we can fit into Manchester 2-3 right. And today we're expecting, because it's a dry runway, we'll use idle reverse thrust. We can also look at our MCDU and we see our landing time 15:48 and 15:37 is the current time. So probably about 10 minutes of landing, so I'd probably tell the air traffic control, tell the cabin crew now that there's 10 minutes of landing and put the seatbelt signs on. And I'll give them an idea. We'll start preparing the cabin for our arrival into Manchester. The Airbus is very clever. It calculates, even with the winds, your arrival profile. So we can see here that it expects us to pass Rosen, flight level 78 to 30 knots. So quite slow, but that's a speed restriction. I've got constraints marked on my EFIS panel, which means I can see these magenta restrictions on the navigation display. So 230 knots, as we saw from our chart earlier, is absolutely right. So there's speed out star, monitoring our level off. Something we would do much more carefully in real life. We'd be very aware of our level offs because you don't want to be descending through into other traffic ever, obviously, for obvious reasons. So we're again getting high. We can see our green donuts going down, which means that's where the airplane wants us to be, down at 9,500 feet and continuing our descent. Our progress page will show us how high we are. Here we go, 600 feet. On some of the newer Airbuses, on the Neos, the PFD will actually show you a number of how high you are as well. So we'll pretend air traffic control have cleared us down to 5,000 feet on the QNH of 1028, I believe it was. 1028, yep. So again, using my scroll wheel down to 5,000 feet. I'm going to do it in managed descent, so move the mouse so I get one dot and click. And now we get DES, so the airplane is managing, it knows we're high, it will increase the speed a little bit. But because of that speed restriction of 250 knots, it can't do it much. So I'll be interested to see if it gives us a message to warn us that it's not going to make it. And now we need to set the QNH because we're going down to an altitude. So again, we'll just click here and scroll wheel QNH 1028 is set and cross-checked, which is great. So we're descending through 9,600 feet for 5,000 feet, which we know is safe. On our navigation display, we can see the terrain, 1,800 feet is what's displayed. And again, in real life, we would use charts that give us a very clear idea. You'd be very careful of your descents with terrain around. So we know around the Mach Tango VOR, 3,500 feet to the north, if you can use that. We're probably not quite in that sector just yet, or maybe just coming into it. So you've got to be careful to make sure you are actually in the right place. Very clever, this Avitab, so that we can see our little aeroplane moving over the chart. I haven't got that, I haven't seen that used in real life, although I believe it is possible. Right, so time to activate the approach, I'd say, which is now done. Confirm we've done our 10,000 foot checks, so these lights can go on. Camera crew was given their 10 minutes, and the altimeters are checked. And also we're checking the MCDU, we check that we're still navigating with good accuracy, so GPS is still primary accuracy high. We need 0.3 nautical miles accuracy, and we've got 0.05, which is very typical. GPS is very accurate. But the airplane could navigate without the GPS with less accuracy, so you're just checking that it's within the required for what we're doing. So looking reasonable, it seems to have made it back onto profile for us, 800 feet high. That's interesting. I wouldn't expect the donut to match us then if we're showing up as high on the profile. It seems to be following the descent path, whereas I would expect it to go back onto the speed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into open descent now, get control of the speed. So now it's going to reduce back to initially just a green dot, because we've activated the approach. We're in managed speed, so it'll be green dots. So now we probably are getting a little bit high. Let's check. The platform for this approach is 3,500 feet, which you also know as the MSA in that north sector, so that seems safe. Again, we'd have it confirmed with each other and air traffic control. Let's imagine that we've been cleared down to 3,500. Ah, there we go. So I need to move that across with the left click, I believe, and then, nope. Two, three, four, 3,500 feet, there we go. And of course, another thing we should have done at 10,000 feet would be the LS push buttons. That's going to be very useful, isn't it? I'm sure a lot of you were itching to say that when you saw me miss that. So there we go. LS push buttons up. And we can check that we have identified the India November 109.5. And we can look at our charts. 1095, India November. Great. Course 233 and 232 on the chart, so reasonable. So now I think we are high. We can check our track miles. 16 miles, but we've got to decelerate, so I'm going to use some speed brake. And this is the difference in a 321 over a 319. If we start using speed brake, you'll see in the real airplane, certainly the VLS increases very quickly. It doesn't seem to be happening here. So in the real 321, when you put out speed brake, this VLS increases very fast, and it's quite difficult to use a lot of speed brake at slow speed until you have some sort of flap out. So I'm going to put out first stage of flap, then I'm going to give us full speed brake. I think we're going to need it. Round we go. So it could be a glide slope capture from above. Let's see what happens. 12 miles out, 4,400 feet, so slightly high. I think we can put out flap 2. Speeds checked. Flap 2. So now the airplane will decelerate to F speed. We're still in open descent, so we're in a way speed protected. It won't go too slow, but it should come back to the F speed if it can, as opposed to a vertical speed. And certainly now we definitely need to arm the approach. And there we go. Speed glide slope style lock start, AP1+2. So that's all worked. Normally you check it's armed, but it's done it quicker than expected. Going altitude of 3,500 feet, we would check at this point, which is set. Climb to 3,500 feet. So 10 miles out, we could probably afford to fly a bit faster. So I'd keep it at, let's do 160 knots for the rest of the approach. Oh. 160, there we go. Quite common for air traffic control in busier airports to request that until 4 miles, which we'll do today. If I look down on the MCDU, I can see our final approach speed of 145, so only 15 knots to lose from 160 knots, so it'd be quite a short amount of time needed to stabilize. So if we do 160 to 4, at 4 miles we'll manage the speed, we'll configure the rest, and then we can... Helps if you put the speed brake away, which I definitely should have done earlier. And then we can, at 4 miles, manage the speed, gear down, flap full. Yeah, that's why in real life you always have your hand on the speed brakes so that you don't end up embarrassing yourself by having that out as the engines are spooling up. And it will sometimes give you an ECAM warning if you do that for too long. So there we go, the radar just came alive, 2,300 feet. That seems sensible, 300 feet elevation over a bit of terrain, which is reasonable for Manchester. Starting to get visual of the runway now, up ahead. Winds are shifting around a little bit. 6 miles to go. I'm going to ding the cabin to let them know that we are on final approach and they need to be ready. Wind's swinging around a bit. Manchester has a bit of a hump in the runway, just in the touchdown zone for 2-3 right. So on landing, you can sometimes see the ground rushing up towards you a little bit. So just normal technique, looking out to the end of the runway. Okay, here we go, approaching our 4 miles. So I'm going to manage the speeds. We'll put the gear down and we'll put up the rest of the flap. So flap 3 and flap 4. Arm the spoilers, put on the rest of the lights. Okay, here we go. We got our ECAM memo, which is landing no blue. The cabin's ready, and we were stable. So we're in a good place to continue our approach now, and we're stable nicely in time for our 1,000 feet. Slight difference between, there's 1,000 feet and we are stable for landing, so we can continue. Slight difference in the 321, pitch limit is 7.5 degrees. So on the 319 we can go a bit higher at 10 degrees, but in this one we don't want the nose to go above 7.5 degrees on landing. So in real life that's where the pilot monitoring would be making sure to make a call out to tell us that we are reaching the pitch limit, and at that point if you can't continue safely, you'll go around, or you'll be able to just stop increasing the nose and continue the landing depending on the situation. Okay. Right, well, I am visual, so I'm going to disconnect the autopilot. You can feel the wind shifting around. Drifting slightly right, so just correcting back onto the centre line. Using the pappies, visually looking out. Starting the flare. Idle thrust. And there we are. Gauge the reverse. Check we have the auto brake, which we do with decel green. Through 70 knots, reverse back to idle. Ooh, a bit twitchy on the rudder there. Get it nice and slow, and we can start our vacating the runway. It's probably a little bit fast, maybe down at 20 knots. And here we are, arrived in Manchester. And usually in a busy airport like this, you'd often see people, spotters up here on the hill in the aviation park. And there'll probably be aircraft already on final approach behind you, as well as crossing the runway to go over to 23 left for takeoff. So we get our clearance obviously from air traffic control. I'm just going to bring it to a stop because this is a little bit too much for me to do all on my own. Right, so after landing, as we clear the runway, we're going to turn off the lights so we don't blind other pilots. And then once we've done, got our taxi clearance and so on, we can disarm the spoilers. Ooh. Bring the flaps up to 0. And turn off the weather radar. We don't want to be sending up radiation when we don't need to. And bridge the wind shear. Start up the APU, ready for our arrival. And bring the TCAS background. We don't need that on TAR anymore. Now we're on the grounds. Great. So I hope that was interesting to you guys to some extent. It's just a nice afternoon for an arrival into Manchester. Like I said, really impressed with this Airbus. Really nice model. A few things in the way the automatics work that aren't quite as I'd expect, but I believe they're constantly working on it as time goes on. But very impressed overall, and I hope you enjoy the video. I'll be making more Airbus X-Plane 11 videos as time goes on, so do please let me know if there's anything in particular that you'd like to see, or any of the systems you'd like explained on the Airbus. Thanks for watching, and have a good evening.